Hello, hello, lovely people. Welcome into That Sounds Gay. My name is Jer, and I will be your podcast host for a short time. I am with my very lovely friend, Erin. How the heck are you doing today?
Hello, I'm wonderful and I'm very happy to be here. I think it's really funny. I was at Anime Boston this past weekend
All
and I
right.
literally went to a 18 plus panel where J. Michael Tatum called me on the stage to tell him about monster fucking. So I
Stop
feel like
it.
I'm in the right mindset for that.
Wait, how was that?
It was amazing. I had three glasses of wine in me, and my friend went up to ask him a question, and then she mentioned monster fucking, and he was like, What is monster fucking?" And I was like, "Oh boy." And she pointed me out in the crowd and was like, "My friend is a monster fucker." And he was like, "I need to ask you some questions." So I went on stage and I talked to him about monster fucking.
Oh my god. Wait, that sounds like a dream come true, though.
It was fantastic.
What was the reception?
The audience was going nuts.
Yes,
There
they
was a lot of
better.
monster fuckers out there, so
I feel like there are way more monster fuckers than are willing to admit it.
100%.
Because I feel like as soon as you start bringing up, you're like, ooh, this one's kind of sexy. Then that's when someone chimes in and they're like, oh, what about this one, though? You're like,
Listen,
oh, okay, I see you.
the audience found out that Mr. Tatum has bad dragon stuff, and we were like, "Oh, so you are a monster fucker?" And he was like, "I guess maybe I am."
Have you seen that there's this news of this tower, I think it's in Dubai, that they're wanting to build this huge skyscraper, and everyone's like, what in the bad dragon? Because it looks like a big dragon dildo.
I don't think I've seen that.
If I find it, I'm gonna send it to you because Jake showed it to me this
Please.
morning, and I literally looked at it and I was like, is that a dragon dildo? And he goes, no, it's a skyscraper that they want to build. Like, do they have no idea?
I could take it.
Just take the whole skyscraper. Just
Hmm.
one big gape.
Listen, I don't actually have any bad dragon stuff, but I want it. I need it.
So I have a very serious and important question here. What was the gateway drug for you?
You know, J. Michael Tatum himself also asked me that, and I honestly, I'm not sure. Um,
Because
I
I feel like for me, sorry to cut you off. I'll let you
No, go
think.
ahead.
I think for me, I think in the early days, before I was even cognizant of it, I think Ganondorf. I don't know if he counts as a monster. I feel like
He
he could.
can.
Yeah, he totally
Hmm.
could. I feel like he kind of was my gateway, and then I think a lot of people don't want to admit it, but will as they get older. Bowser Loki could get it, and I think I kind of started to notice that as I got into my teens. That I was always kind of like, Bowser kind of thick though. Like I don't know if those words were necessarily in my head, but that was what I was thinking.
I am a big Bowser fan. So the thing is, yeah, I really wasn't when I was younger.
Mm,
Bowser was not like of interest to me, and I don't know when that changed.
mm.
I will say, I was for a long time not necessarily unhorny, but like repressed, repressed horny. Um, for a very long time because I was like asexual and
Mm.
I still am, but I was like, oh, I'm ace, which means I can't be horny. So I repressed it. I don't know. Subconscious does wild things. So I really like wasn't aware of what I was attracted to for a really long time.
Mm.
Um, but I think one thing when I started to like actually come into horniness, which is a great sentence.
I feel like that
Um,
should be a book title. Coming into horniness. The
I
monster
love
fucker
it.
story.
I should write that.
You should. I would read
But
it.
um, my one of my friends was like starting a D&D game,
Mm.
and I made a character for it. He is my Discord icon and my favorite D&D character ever. Uh, and one of my other friends made a character who's this big half Oni named
Oh,
Raxa, and he's like massive, huge tits, like big horns, anger
I'm
man.
already
He when he
ready.
gets angry, he like gets even bigger and goes feral. And I'm like, hi, Raxa. uh, I was like flipping my hair while I was saying that.
Let's go.
I'm literally staring at art of him on my wall right now. Like I'm obsessed with him, and like I feel like that might have changed my brain chemistry a little bit.
Oh, fully. I feel like there's that one character that suddenly does it for you. I feel like as much as I play Dead by Daylight, I feel like that hasn't helped at all because I suddenly look at some
Yeah.
of these horrifying creatures and I'm like, how big do you think they are? Do you think their butt is fat? You know, I'm like thinking very inappropriate thoughts about some of these what are supposed to be horrible creatures, and then I'll, be just casually talking to people about monsters, and I'm like, oh yeah, they're kind of sexy, and I almost wonder if it's like, when you say something jokingly enough times, your brain starts to believe it. Like I almost wonder if that's what happened.
Yeah, maybe.
That I'm like, ooh, they're sexy. And then my brain started being like, you think monsters are hot. And I'm like, oh my God, wait, I do think monsters are hot, don't I?
The thing is, they are.
But
Listen,
so
I'm
many of them
attracted to
are.
things that are big and strong and could kill me. I'm I'm a bottom. What can I say? Um, but yeah, like Dead by Daylight 2, I don't play it very often, but I see some of the killers in it, and I'm like, okay. I mean, the Demogorgon isn't from Dead by Daylight, but I have always joked he's my boyfriend.
So many people say that.
Listen, something about that mouth. Um, and Oni obviously is a big one for me.
Yeah.
Unsurprising, I have a big thing for Onis apparently.
Yeah. Who wouldn't?
Um,
They got big bar titties.
I also the thing is at the J. Michael Tatum panel, he asked me a similar question, like what was your first like monster fucker experience? And I was like, I really can't place it. But he was asking about other monsters and stuff, and I listed like my friends get so confused when I say this, but
Mm.
like in D&D and fantasy stuff, the mimic, the like usually disguises itself as a chest or whatever so that it can
Oh, yeah,
lure
yeah.
people in and eat them. I think those are hot as hell. And people are like, what, why, how? And I mean, for one thing, the like original design for a mimic has like a big tongue, and
I mean, what that tongue do, though?
exactly. But in certain art, it also has tentacles, and everyone knows about tentacles at
So
this
many
point.
people are into the tentacle thing.
I
I mean,
love tentacles.
I definitely understand it is not for me, but I understand it, and I'm like, okay, I get why that does that thing for you. And I feel like people look at Nemesis with that tentacle that he's got that comes out of his wrist, and they're like, you're it, daddy.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I mean, hey, I understand. I
I
understand.
like him.
Why do you think as queer people we're so attracted to horror in general? Like, what do you think that is? Is it the idea of a lot of these movies have a strong female lead, the final girl trope? And
Which
so many
queers
of us,
love.
yeah, we love powerful women. Queer people love
Mhm.
powerful women. Do you think it has anything to do with that, or do you think it's that like we see this thing that's supposed to be horrifying, and we almost see, because this is what I've heard, that we almost see like society because we're
Mhm.
the outcast. We're the thing that people are afraid of. And so we identify with these monsters because people think that of us sometimes. And that person could just be misunderstood and might not be as horrible as they seem.
Yes, absolutely. I actually wrote an essay on this in college,
Really?
uh, because I was passionate about it. I literally like made a joke about wanting to like kiss Scott Howell from Monster Palm in it. Anyways, yeah,
Scott is
like
really cute though.
He's a werewolf himbo. Those are two of my favorite things in the world.
Right?
Perfect man, in my opinion.
Damien's pretty great
No, but
too.
yes, he is. I think my second favorite, at least
Yeah.
from the first game. Um, but yeah, like we see some monsters at least and relate to them in certain ways
Mm.
because in like Frankenstein and shit. Frankenstein's not like bad, or
Hmm.
Frankenstein's monster, I
Right.
guess. Like that's a really popular like horror story,
Right.
and Frankenstein's not necessarily bad. He's just misunderstood. And we see ourselves in that kind of thing, like being othered, being seen as almost taboo in society.
Yeah.
Like, and in other ways, there's vampires, which are almost meant. Originally, vampires were sort of portrayed as sort of queer in a
Hmm.
way, and so obviously we were gonna take that and run with it and be obsessed with vampires.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they're sexy.
they're very sexy. They're very, very, very sexy. And I think there's another monster, I can't remember which one it is, that is very closely tied with gay people in general. Is it demons? Maybe as like
I
just
mean,
as a concept, as a monster, because they used to say that gay people were close to they were demons because they were like basically like tonguing the devil's butt, and they used to. I remember
God, I
reading this
wish.
whole thing, right? Especially if it's Tom Ellis. I mean, he's a beautiful man. There's this old artwork that I remember I was watching this whole video essay about that they used to try and villainize eating butt as saying that that's what like demons do. That when you are close to the devil, you are eating his butt, and they like tried to make eating ass like it's a demonic thing. So it's like, yeah, I think that idea of being othered and seeing ourselves in some of these monsters, which society thinks are scary, they really are just different
Hmm.
and not
Yeah, I
actually that
mean,
scary.
there's a reason why my PNG tuber is a prince of hell. um, I think it's funny though, because at one point my mom and I were like, I think in Maine or something, and we drove past a church, and my mom was like, joked that if I walked into the church, it would like explode from me just being in there. I was like, what? Because I'm trans? And she was like, what? No, because you're an atheist. And I was like, what? Like in my brain, the immediate perception was like, oh, she's gonna say that because I'm gay or trans. It's like not because she actually believed it, but as a joke. But she was like, no, I would never think that. I was like, oh, thanks, mom.
Oh,
But
good
being an
mom
atheist
moment.
is satanic, I guess. I don't know. Uh, but
I'm kind of obsessed with that though.
but yeah, I very much like to portray myself as like a demon because it feels right
Right.
to say screw you to like the way that a lot of religious people view us
Yeah,
and to
absolutely.
like embrace it.
It's very freeing to reclaim a lot of that sort of villainy and be like, you know what? It's like Easy A, where it's like I'm gonna be the
Hmm.
sluttiest slut that they've ever seen. You know, it's like, well, if they think that I'm a demon, I'm gonna be the worst demon that they've ever seen. I'm gonna do
Absolutely.
it, and they can't stop me.
And I say that, but like in real life, I am so sweet and I don't know how to be mean to anyone ever, but I can pretend online.
That's the thing that I think is so funny, because that is very true. It's very, very true. But I feel the same way. I feel like I talk up a big game. I remember once sorry, I'm gonna like overshare a sex story, but I hooked up with
Go
this
for
guy
it.
once, and he was on his stomach, and he's like, "Call me a bitch," and I'm like on top of him, and I'm like, I had a full existential crisis, like in those TV shows where the camera will slow down and zoom in on the person's face, and they have like an entire inner monologue, and they're just having a whole crisis. And that was me. I had a full monologue. I'm like, okay, what if I do call him a bitch though? I'm gonna feel bad about myself for the rest of the day. I talked about this big game about being a dom, and now I'm here and I have to do this. So I'm like, you little bitch. I like choked on the word, and then literally I started like getting emotional, and I remember I went home and I was in my car and I'm like driving back and I'm like, I called him a bitch. Oh no, I have to apologize, but he wanted me to call
He
him that.
asked you to.
And I remember I messaged him and I was like, I'm so sorry I called you that. I'll never do it again. And also, I can't ever see you again. Bye.
Oh, chair. I feel like I remember hearing you tell that story on stream, but it's so funny. Like, I want to judge you, but I feel like I would be the same way. Like, see, I am extremely not a dom is the thing, but like, part of the reason I'm not a dom is because the idea of like ever being mean to anyone, even consensually, is like so difficult for me.
Right? Right? I'm like, I can talk up the game and I could be like, oh yeah, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll tell you all this. And then I get there and in practice and I'm like, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. I'm too soft for this.
It's okay. People like nice doms too.
Yeah, soft doms. It's a
Yeah.
thing. Soft doms are totally a thing.
I accept them, but I like it when people are mean to me. Which is why I like monsters. Circling
Right?
back there.
Right. Which is what we are here to talk about. So let's get a little bit in depth on this. So, as you know, Twitter, specifically Elon Musk, if you're listening, you can choke, has really cucked Twitter. And I used to do these battle brackets every single week. And I had one that I designed specifically for monsters and trying to bracket all of them off and seeing who essentially was the sexiest monster out there. And because of the way that Twitter is now tackling that, that's no longer a thing that I can do. So, because you are the resident monster expert, I thought I would bring you in and we can sort of whittle this down to maybe a top two. So I've got a very intricate list here. And I have some very well-knowns. I have a little bit of some lesser knowns. And I kind of scratched out some names ahead of time just for the purpose of time. So let's jump into this. And I'm so curious to hear your thoughts about each one of these. So
Please.
for the first one, it's Mothman versus No Face. No Face from Spirited Away.
Okay.
I think Mothman is kind of the superior cryptid and monster in general. Like, I already really love Mothman's story, but then you think about what it is and the visual of it. I feel like there are a lot of people who turn up to Mothman.
I turn up to Mothman for sure. When you asked, I wanted to give it a fair shot, but like Mothman all the way for me.
Right.
No Face is really good. Don't get me wrong. I like when he gets all big and feral and eating everything. It's cool. I like it, But and maybe it's the furry in me.
Oh my God.
But Mothman
Please.
just has such an appeal.
But I mean, I think that is what the appeal is for a lot of people.
Probably, yeah. You'll find that when comparing two monsters, I tend to go for the fluffier one.
That's so valid.
Not always. Not always.
How do you feel about humanoid-looking ones?
Depends on how humanoid. Like, and Oni is pretty humanoid.
Right.
And I love him, obviously. So, it depends on how many monstrous features they have even on their humanoid body. Horns, big teeth, big claws.
That's
that kind
super
of shit.
valid. That's super valid.
Makes it great.
So
even
we've
if
got
they're a little
ones that are
cute.
coming up soon, but not yet, because this next one, and I know that you have feelings about one of these, is Predator versus Cthulhu. I feel like I already know where you're gonna fall in line with this.
I bought a ring a while back that is a tentacle. And I joke that it is for Cthulhu. Um, I would marry him in a heartbeat. I
Honestly,
love
that's me too.
I love a good unknowable entity whose form is so fucked up that like
I love all
that's
the
sexy.
visuals of Cthulhu being this big, gigantic creature with all these tentacles coming out of its face that just takes up the entire horizon. And as it comes out of the water, is just literally casting away the sun because it's so big. The idea of that visual is really cool. I mean, there'd be no way you could ever have any type of intimacy with a creature that big.
You
I
don't know
mean,
that.
that's
You
quitter
don't know what I'm
behavior.
capable of.
I mean, you're gonna sit on that tower in Dubai, I guess. So can never doubt
Exactly.
anything. But yeah, I mean, it's such a powerful, cool visual of how daunting and terrifying Cthulhu is. And like you said, there's something very, I don't know.
Sexy.
Yeah, that Dom
Titillating.
energy.
Anyways, Cthulhu is my husband, so
Dom
he's
me
an obvious
so
winner.
hard that you make me forget you. Ghost me so hard. these these next two are both extremely humanoid.
Hmm.
And it is Pyramid Head versus Imhotep from the Mummy. In his mummy form specifically, because I think Imhotep as a human, very sexy man. We know what Pyramid Head looks like. Pyramid Head is real thick,
Oh yeah.
and Pyramid Head,
Hmm.
I mean, is kind of always top tier for me. I feel like as far as video game media, because like a lot of these other ones that we've already brought up, these are mostly staying in either real life lore or in TV movie media, where Pyramid Head specifically comes from video game media. And I
Hmm.
think that Pyramid Head was a gateway for a lot of people into being like, we don't know what's out of the mask. It could be a human face, it could be a monster's face, it could be nothing. And there's something very appealing and alluring about just his presence in general, despite what he represents, you know?
God, characters with masks are so sexy. So
Aren't they
yeah.
though? I don't know what
Yeah.
that is.
The thing about Pyramid Head is that he really is, at least just from looking at him, just like a guy,
Yeah, he's just a dude.
but he's got a big pyramid on his head, believe it or not. Um, and some might call me a coward for this, but I'm just not really a mummy person.
That's super valid though.
Um, Listen, decrepit corpses isn't my idea of a sexy monster.
Well, and imagine
And
having to
obviously,
unwrap all that.
so okay, the built-in bondage of mummies is a little sexy. Don't get me wrong.
Not
I
the
am also
built-in
known to be a bit of a
bondage.
rope bunny. But
I'm screaming.
just looking up Imhotep, I'm like, I'm good actually.
When he opens his mouth, flies come out.
I'm good actually. Yeah, the decrepit corpse is probably like one of the like lowest tier type monster to me. Like I'm not really into zombies, mummies. If a skeleton is in armor, they become more sexy, but just
That's
a
fair.
skeleton, eh.
So I think we'll skip ahead and already get here anyway, because we do have a zombie that's on this bracket, and it is
Okay.
going against Medusa. So am I just gonna assume that we're gonna be like, nah, zombies out of here?
Is it a specific zombie or just
Any
zombie in
zombie
general?
in general.
Then I have so I'm so sorry then, but it's gotta be Medusa. Um, Medusa is also pretty, at least in most depictions, like pretty humanoid, just
Right.
has the snake hair, which, that's fine. But I also like women. Um, and I mean, like, she could turn me to stone if she wanted.
Right?
If she
Right?
wanted to.
She has, I think,
Or
such
it's just
an interesting story as far
or
as
it's just
who
like
she is.
a forced blindfold situation. Sorry.
That's very subby.
I'm a bottom.
You know what? Asked and
And
answered.
very submissive. it's it's simple. If I can like find ways to work in being super submissive, then it's even better.
So Medusa's already got that on lock. She's
Yeah.
already got the Tommy Mommy thing going on.
Most monsters sort of have a good dominant nature to them. Not all
Right,
of them, but a good amount of them do,
right,
which automatically makes them sexier to me.
right. These next two is just a general Minotaur throwing it back, but against the Xenomorph.
Oh,
I knew that was gonna be the response. I just knew it. And
oh no.
Xenomorph is one of those that a lot of people are like very, very into. When I was playing Alien Isolation, people were losing their minds about Xenomorph because the way that it moves,
Yeah.
the way that it walks, it represents such a feeling of horror and dread, and that is what queer people freaking turn up to when it comes to monster fucking.
Here's the thing. I mean, minotaurs are also one of my like top tier monsters.
Right.
As I've established, I'm also a furry. And minotaurs are very sexy, and I like the horns and their big rippling muscles, you
Right.
know. But yeah, the xenomorph is just literally like the alien movies were sort of supposed to be about gender and the patriarchy.
Right.
And the xenomorph was literally designed to sort of represent the patriarchy.
Right.
The like phallic nature, the aliens in that movie like literally impregnate you, you know,
Right.
like that's yeah, it's supposed to represent the patriarchy, but at the same time, people are like, I'm into that.
It's the
They
sleek
made a
nature of it.
monster that looks so phallic, and people were gonna be horny about it. That's just how it's just how it's gonna be.
It's true.
But yeah, xenomorph is definitely a rank higher, I would say, than a minotaur to me.
I had a
It's
feeling that's where it was gonna go.
like I know the movie that it is from is literally called Alien, but like
Right.
it is so alien. It is so fucked up looking. And I love it when they're fucked up looking. That thing could destroy me with a single swipe of its claws, and
It
I
would.
would thank it.
While we're talking about her really quick, I just want to say that I think Ellen Ripley is one of the coolest, badass female characters that's probably ever been in media.
I absolutely agree.
Probably. I can't think of many others. And I know that I did a bracket on Twitter and she got voted out pretty early. But I believe with all my
Wrongfully
heart,
so.
wrongfully so, I think with all my heart that she's one of the strongest.
She's so cool.
She's such a badass.
And she was also designed to be very, like, gender neutral, I
Mhm.
guess. Because, once again, it was about gender and the patriarchy, so they had a majority of the, like, human characters were supposed to be very, like, gender non-conforming in a
Right.
way. I think they did a good job with her.
They did such a good job. One of my favorite lore things from not even lore, just behind the set or behind the scenes stuff is that she refused to shave her bits.
Yes.
And she was like, I'm not doing it. And they're like, but we have a shot where you're in your underwear. And they had to get someone to go in the 80s and pay them so much money to go in and digitally remove her minge. And I
Yeah.
think that is just
I heard about that.
fabulous. She was like, no, I'm not doing it. And you can remove it yourself. I'm not
love
doing
her.
it. Sigourney Weaver is an icon. An
Fucking
icon.
incredible.
Absolutely incredible.
I just think it's so funny that like Alien is in a way very easily a queer story,
Yeah.
just in the way that it is, you know, once again, I keep saying it, but you know, about the patriarchy and
Right.
about gender, and that is inherently very queer.
Yeah. Well, the patriarchy,
like automatically,
it
and then
oppresses women
the-
just as much as it oppresses queer people, or I guess
Yeah.
opposite.
But like even then with the monster being the one portrayed as like the oppressive system, where all the queers were like, Hey, hi.
Tucks hair behind ear, very sexily. Hi.
So maybe the xenomorph is queer, actually, because I said so.
Just a big old penis.
Mm-hmm. I
Okay,
love.
so our next one, and I feel like I know where you're gonna fall on this too, is we have the
I,
Hydra. I wanted to get a lot of old
mm,
school mythic monsters in here. So we got the
Hydra.
Hydra, but we also have Nosferatu.
Okay. I mean, I feel like most people would lean in a certain direction for this,
Right, absolutely.
specifically because I find Nosferatu to be just a little freak. And not in a sexy way. I love him. I love him so much. But he's such a little freak. And I am a big dragon fucker. So,
Right.
a multi-headed, massive dragon, you know, I'm
That
into
can
it.
keep growing its heads back. Or is that
That's a
just a
lot of
Hercules
head.
thing? I feel
No,
like it's a
that
real
that is
thing.
that is always how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a lot of head. That's so
It's a lot of
much.
head.
So head.
But like more heads for me to kiss.
Right?
Um yeah, I it's got to be the Hydra.
Right. I
It's pretty easy for me.
right. All right. Next one is I fully am just gonna put my bid down for Grim Reaper before we even move on, because it's Grim Reaper versus Pennywise, and I will be honest,
Hmm.
Pennywise doesn't do anything for me. I don't like clowns that much, but even
Nah.
it being like it's a demon, right? Is what Pennywise is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be. Even the idea of that, I don't know, a demon wanting to like eat children and destroy children is like very I'm like, yes, please, population control. Take those kids out. If they're dumb enough to go into the sewer grate, you know what? You take them. They should have learned better not to talk to strangers. But like, I don't know. That's not enough for me to be like, ooh, come on over, demon daddy, you know? Grim
I
Reaper literally can take your soul and carries around that big scythe with that
mm-hmm.
hood and its mask and you don't know what he looks like. Nut, you know?
A few things. I did watch the It Chapter 1. I never watched Chapter 2.
Okay.
Apparently it wasn't very good, so whatever. But the first one, I loved it. I was hooked the whole time. Absolutely, like every single one of those kids, I was like, please live. I love you so much. Please don't die. You're perfect. Um, but like also, and I'm gonna say out of the gate, you're right. The Grim Reaper is sexier to me. However, um, Pennywise the clown, no.
Right.
I'm good. Um, until he like fucking his face turns into like a massive like jaw that like opens, that
Mm.
immediately makes him sexier to me. Um, eat my face, absolutely. But Pennywise is, I believe, in the lore, and it's more mentioned in the book than in any of the movies. But
Mm.
he is like, once again, his true form is something that is incomprehensible to the human mind,
Okay.
uh, which is automatically very sexy to me as well, as we've gone over with Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Um, so the human mind sort of just defaults to seeing it as like something we already know, which is generally a spider, I believe.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so like I think in the original movie with Tim Curry, he does at some point turn into a big spider.
That's
That they have to
terrifying.
fight. I never watched the like full um like original movie, but
That's absolutely terrifying. Spiders are a
and
no-go.
I'm a big fan of spiders.
Oh, I hate
So
them.
spider spider women, impeccable.
The one from
Um
Doctor Who?
um
The,
I don't
the
know. I don't know.
Rachnos, I think is what it was. The Queen
Mm,
Rachnos. She's like this
Spider-
big red spider mother
I'd fuck
who.
that. Oh yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Love a Spider Woman. Spider Men too, don't get me wrong, but there's
Yeah.
something about Spider Women that really gets me. Um, but yeah, so that's my case for Pennywise. I'm still leaning more towards the Grim Reaper. Um, just the inherent sexiness of death, I guess. I don't know.
What gets
Can
your
read my
final
soul
vote?
any day. Yeah. Big fan of Big Scythe, the cloak. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
there's a lot of
don't know what
appeal.
his face looks like in some iterations, at least.
Right,
We mentioned before, not knowing what someone's face looks like underneath, very sexy.
right,
Not that there's not iterations of the Reaper where you know what their face looks like, but
right.
usually they're sexy anyways.
Yeah, like Milo from Monster Camp. Milo's
Yes,
very sexy.
they're so hot.
And the fact they're NB, they just have this really cool aesthetic to them. So next we have the classic Frankenstein's monster, who is
Hmm.
always incorrectly named just Frankenstein, versus
Yeah.
Clover from Cloverfield. That big alien. Did you watch Cloverfield?
I never watched the original Cloverfield.
It's found footage style, so I know a lot of people
Yeah.
got really sick from the film because they don't like that type of filming. I turn up to Cloverfield, and that is a series that could be churning out content every year and keep expanding on the lore because it's so mysterious and odd.
Hmm.
And they completely stopped it at Cloverfield Paradox, and I don't understand. JJ Abrams, JJ, no, that's my that's my mod. JJ Abrams has enough money and resources that he could keep churning out those movies, and it's a bummer that he doesn't.
I heard that the Paradox movie wasn't very good. I never watched it.
It was
I did
fine.
watch the one in the middle where
Cloverfield
like you
Lane.
don't even. Yes, it that was a fantastic
Oh, it
movie.
was so good. It was horrifying, but it was
I like
great.
that I didn't watch the first one or the latest one, but I watched that one.
The middle
But
one
it
I
was
think was the most
fantastic.
accessible. It had no found footage aspect to it.
Hmm.
The story was pretty easy to follow, and it sort of the twist I think is nice at the end. And then the last one is just it's a lot to keep up with, and a lot of the characters aren't super likable. It's hard to
Okay,
enjoy the movie because of that. So honestly, I feel like the one that you watched was the most accessible and the most comfortable for people to watch.
good to know. It's a fantastic movie. Anyways, I looked up Clover.
Hmm.
Very sexy to me. Absolutely. Um, the other the other one was just Frankenstein's monster.
Right.
He's sort of like, and we were talking about how Frankenstein's monster is, sort of one of those monsters that people could easily relate to, like queer people could easily relate
Right.
to because he was misunderstood, outcast from society type deal.
Hmm.
Doesn't make him sexy to me though.
That's so valid.
um, I also established I'm not really big into zombies, and he's kind of technically a zombie.
Technically, yeah.
Um, and he is pretty humanoid in otherwise in appearance, whereas Clover is a big, scary,
Hulking
horrible
creature.
alien
Right.
monster. And I'm just looking at it like, oh, hello.
Tucks hair behind ear again. And
I
it could eat you.
It could, and it should.
Okay, so we're gonna get into speed rounds here.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going back up to the top, and we're gonna tackle this again. So from our previous one, we have Mothman versus Cthulhu. Immediate thought.
No.
I know you gotta whittle these down now. You
I
gotta
mean,
make
it's
some
gotta be
go away.
Cthulhu.
You think so?
He's my husband. I
But
can't
Mothman has a
choose.
fat butt.
You're right. You're right, and you should say it. I didn't say this was an easy choice, and I have friends who want to marry Mothman, and
I
I'm
want to
letting
marry
them down
Mothman.
and choosing Cthulhu over him. But massive, world-ending, unknowable entity that drives you insane, and also has sexy tentacles. Like, don't mind if I do.
All the appeal is right there. I already know where you're gonna fall, and I'm already hurt. Pyramid Head versus Xenomorph.
I'm so sorry, Jerry.
I know. I know.
I'm a freak.
It's Xenomorph.
Pyramid,
I
like I
already know.
said, Pyramid Head is very much, at least from just basic appearance, just like a guy with a pyramid head, and he's sexy.
A very sexy man.
He's got a fat dumpy.
Right. Big fat butt.
He could kill me, and I'd thank him. But xenomorph, man.
Yeah, I knew that's where you were going to go, and I was already hurt. I saw the names together, and I was already in pain. And
so sorry.
I feel like the rest of these, I already know where you're going to land. Medusa versus Hydra.
Hydra, yeah.
Of course. I mean, it's the multiple heads.
Absolutely.
And Medusa's very humanoid. And then, of course, this last one, Grimm versus Clover.
Yeah.
Obviously, same situation.
I keep getting, like, you know, a much more humanoid monster versus a much more monstrous monster. And it's...
Right.
What kind of monster fucker would I be not to choose the more monstrous one? It would actually be a monster fucker light, is what we call it.
Which is probably where
like,
I'm
into
at.
Things with monstrous traits. Like, I have a friend who's like, I'm really into dragons. And then I realized she didn't mean she was into dragons. She meant she was into dragons who could shapeshift into a more human form that might have, like, horns or something. And I'm like, that's not a monster at that point.
And that's where I'm at, too. Because I'm like, Pyramid Head, Mothman. They were, like, very humanoid. And I'm like, let me at them.
It sounds like you're a little monster fucker light.
I'm very light. And that is okay. And for anyone who's listening, if you're a monster fucker light, I want you to know that I see you. And we see each other. We are valid.
I just can't relate.
I know. And what you've done now is you've made impossible situations, because we're still in these speed rounds. Cthulhu versus Xenomorph. What are you going to do about this?
Oh, no.
How are you going to resolve this?
This is so difficult.
This, I think, is going to be harder than the next one. I
think if we're going for a raw sex appeal, I gotta go for Xenomorph. In that sense, at least.
Yeah.
But in the other sense, Cthulhu's my husband.
Right.
We've established this. I want to marry Cthulhu. So, like, I'm deeply and passionately in love with Cthulhu. I don't have that same sense of personal intimacy with Xenomorph, so it's very difficult.
Yeah, but we're talking raw, hot, passionate monster fucking. Not long-term relationships on a suburb in the middle of Sesame Street with your husband living.
Sesame Street?
Yeah, we're there. You know, we're not doing that with a white picket fence. We're saying the one you go next door, the hot, sexy neighbor. They open up the door and you just raw dog until your sexy husband comes back and you're like, I made you casserole.
I feel like I have to pull off my ring for a second. And go for
and apologize to Cthulhu and say I'm so sorry. I'll come home to you.
I'll go out and I'll have my night with the Xenomorph and I'll come home to Cthulhu. He'll forgive me, I'm sure.
Then explode with a little face hugger later.
Oh, the face hugger wasn't even on the list, but I'm thinking about it.
Okay, so this one might be slightly less difficult for you. Hydra versus Clover.
It is less difficult.
Yeah.
There's dragons out there that I would rank way higher than the Hydra.
Right.
I like... The Hydra is very sexy, don't get me wrong. And as with most dragons, it is reptilian in nature, but there's other dragons that are way more, I guess, like... When I think of a Hydra, I think of it as being very, like, wet and slimy. I could be wrong, but that's what I visualize in my brain.
The moisture.
Moisture. I like a good dragon that's, like, scaly with the, like, big claws and the...
Yeah.
I don't know. It's different. So if it was a different form of a dragon versus Clover, I think it would be a little bit more of a difficult pick.
Right.
But Hydra, I gotta go for Clover, I think.
I'm actually really shocked. I was sure that you were going to go for Clover. Or for Hydra.
Nah, man. I like the fucked up alien with the big claws and the freaky face.
It has a really wild looking face.
Whatever is going on with its crotch area.
Right? And
it's got mandibles.
The whole lore of this.
That's hot.
Right? The whole lore of this creature is so crazy. I know I hyped it up earlier, but like the lore building that they did was so deep and intense. It was a comic that they released. There was a fake website that they dropped in conjunction with the film. They partnered. Did you ever watch Heroes?
No.
Well, it was a TV show that was on ABC. They partnered with Heroes to create this fake slushy company that they endorsed Heroes and gave them some money to include this fake slushy company that one of the characters is just very casually drinking. They don't even talk about it. They just are showing the label while this character is sitting down and drinking her slushy. And it is a reference to this company from the Cloverfield storyline that is, I don't think, even mentioned in the movie. I think maybe they mention a parent company. But they put so much lore and work into what this creature is. And it's part Godzilla, part alien. And it's like this creature that came from somewhere else. And because of the experimentation that this company was doing in the deep sea, it created something even worse than what it was when it came here to Earth. So,
okay.
Yeah, there's like a lot of deep lore that's in Cloverfield that's really, really cool, but it's not found in the film. You have to go looking for it. Okay, so we're in the...
need to watch Cloverfield.
You do.
Sorry.
If you like found footage, I think you'd like it.
I do.
It's fun. It's a good movie, and it's very reminiscent of Alien. It's got little creatures that are on it that chase around the survivors, and it's very horrifying. It's very horrifying. And they're in New York, so it's really congested. And then it came very shortly after, I forget which year it was, but came shortly after 9/11. So obviously that idea of something attacking the city, everybody's on edge because they're like, is it terrorists again? What is this? And they find that it's this alien, and they're like, what do we do about this? But this was not what we were anticipating when we saw that the city was being attacked. And so there's like all these cultural things that are also in it too that are really interesting. It's like such an interesting screen grab of time of what people were very afraid of in that moment. That is so interesting to me.
Yeah, a lot of horror movies tend to be like that. Like,
right.
It's sort of just kind of represents what people are afraid of when that movie was made.
Right. And even though Star Wars isn't horror, you know, it's sci-fi, Star Wars is very much like that too, and Darth Vader represents very much that same idea. And Darth Vader and the Emperor very much represent that fear of the culture at the time. And so I don't know. I think monsters in general, the way that they do encapsulate the fears are very cool. And like zombies, when that was really becoming very popular, I don't know. Good shit. Okay, so we're in the final round. I think I know exactly how this is gonna go.
It's easy.
It's Xenomorph versus Clover. Tell me who is your ultimate monster from this list.
It's gotta be Xenomorph.
I figured.
So sexy to me. Clover's great.
Right.
I love a big giant like monster larger than a building. Fantastic. And I have expressed many a time that when it comes to fucking monsters, survival is not the goal. Neither of these things are things that I would consider myself like actually surviving.
Right.
If I actually came across either
This
of them.
would be an instant death situation.
But the Xenomorph at least is like closer to human size. Which doesn't automatically make it the sexiest. Because I have listed Tarrasque in one of my top tier lists. And if you don't know what a Tarrasque is, it is a 30-foot tall, massive, like spiked reptilian beast. That is like one of the strongest monsters in all of Dungeons and Dragons. Very difficult to kill. But just, I don't know how to describe. I mean, I guess the as we've established, the phallic nature of the Xenomorph does give it a lot of credence, I guess.
Yeah.
It's so hot to me.
Yeah, no, I get it. And obviously this is not a comprehensive list of every monster that's out there, because that would be hours and hours and hours of going back and forth on all of that, because there's so many that are out there. And so this is a pretty watered down list of it, but I do appreciate you entertaining this teeny tiny list of
Of
characters.
course.
If you had to say who the top one of all time, forever and always, raw, passionate, neighbor next door, not the long-term husband monster, top tier forever, who would it be?
It's maybe not the most like monstrous monster out there. But it's just very much established in me as like this is the monster that I'm the most gung-ho about. And it is a werewolf. I
Interesting.
love werewolves. And even at the panel I said that and someone was like, "You're just a furry." And I was like, "Yes, I am." But
And what,
I
bitch?
love werewolves. I think they're so hot. And honestly, if I had to like actively like choose raw sex appeal once again between like, you know, like I did with Cthulhu and Xenomorph, like I think Xenomorph would win out over werewolves, but at the same time, like I don't know, man. I just if I had to choose between one, not for
What if
raw
we
sex
whittled
appeal,
it
but
down
just,
and said
like,
it was Scott from Monster Prom versus Xenomorph?
I love him.
Yeah.
I go for him every time. The only time I've played Monster Prom once and not gone for him, and I went for Damien. Every other time I've played Monster Prom, I've gone for Scott. I love him so much.
Yeah. He's a very good boy.
But I would love to see him in his like fully transformed state.
Yeah. There is I think a part in Monster Road Trip where you get to see that. Where he like transforms. I'm almost positive there's a part in Road Trip because I think I unlocked it randomly. I'm almost positive I did. I could be wrong. But yeah, getting to a wrap up place here. I think this was very fun to hear your opinions. And again, obviously there's so many more monsters that are out there that are worth mentioning and noting, but it would simply go on for years talking about all of them and the many different positions that they could fully throw you on the ground in.
If anyone wants, I can find a way to make my 5th edition D&D Monster Manual tier list that I made. I can make that available somehow. If anyone wants to do their own.
It's incredible. Incredible.
There's so many monsters.
Right.
And there's so many sexy ones.
So many.
But
And I appreciate you being here and hanging out with me and entertaining this list. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. This was so much fun.
thank you so much for
very
having me.
entertained.
When you reached out and were like, "Hey, do you want to be on my podcast to talk about monsters?" I'm like, "Do I want to be on your podcast to talk about monsters? Are you kidding me?
Of course I do.
Who would I be to say no?" One of my favorite things in the world.
And I love that. And I appreciate you so much. Thank you for hanging out with me. If anybody wants to find you, where could they find you at on the internet?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at cherry_quill at least for my streamer Twitter. And on Twitch, I am just Cherry Quill, no underscore, no space, anything. I don't stream a lot, but I'm hoping to do it a little bit soon because I'm currently unemployed.
I mean, let's go to the
So-
streaming, but and not like let's go to the unemployed part, but like let's
It's
go
fine.
because streaming.
Hopefully, I'll be collecting unemployment. Hopefully.
I mean, I guess that's the good part about contracts ending is it's like, okay, well, I could get a little bit of money while I'm looking for jobs, you know?
Yeah.
I guess that's a good part.
But yeah, I'm on Twitch. I am known as the Prince of Hell. There's several. I don't want to take anyone else's spotlight. I am not the Prince of Hell. Just one of
Just
them.
A. There's a lot of room in hell for princes.
And it is an 18+ stream, but I'm sure anyone listening to this one is not going to be shocked.
I don't think they would be at this point. I mean, this episode was very different from other ones that I've had. But honestly, I think it's nice to have something that's a little more out there from what I normally do. So this was
I'm sure
very fun.
people will be thrilled.
Oh, I'm going to be thrilled. No matter what, I'm going to listen to this again and be very entertained by it.
I can't wait. I want to listen to it too.
But thank you so much. I really, really, really appreciate it. And for everyone who is listening, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you for tuning in as always, and I will talk to you very soon. Remember, you are doing a fantastic job, and you're doing the best that you can, and that